Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of the Hotdog and Handshake Podcast. I am Sean Coletta here along with Mike DeVore. We have a guest today who I know. He has been a guest at Heroes and Legends Wrestling on more than one occasion. And inside, outside of the ring, what a great guy. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ricardo Rodriguez. Thank you very much for joining the show today.
No, of course. But you know what? Hold on. So this has become a thing now when I do interviews. We want to make this a little special, right? So, like, if we're going to do this introduction, I think you should maybe give it a little bit of an umph. And I know you can do it. You seem to have some bass in your voice. So I know you can do it. And I believe in you.
Sean.
You know, I think I may have a little too much bass in my voice, but
I believe in you.
You know, I think if we're going for the authenticity aspect, I think you should introduce yourself because you are a personal ring announcer at times.
I am. And that is one of my main titles. So
I can't roll my
Damas y caballeros, yo soy Ricardo Rodriguez.
See, I would have failed epically on that.
I want to see a wrestling match. Let's go.
Yeah, all right. That's definitely the best introduction we've had so far. That was great. Well, hey, once again, thank you for joining the show. We really appreciate it. We know you got a lot going on. You know, especially with your training and stuff like that. I'll tell you what, why don't we start out talking about that? You had just gotten back from there today. So what's going on with that? Tell us about that.
I was over at Knox Pro Entertainment over at the Rikishi School. That's led by Rikishi, Black Pearl, myself. I'm one of the trainers there. Miro, when he's in town, when he's not filming AEW, he's one of the trainers as well. So, and granted, because of COVID and whatever, we have like very strict restrictions. So we're only training like 2 people at a time versus the whole class. So we break them up. So, I mean, I'm waiting for this whole thing to pass so we can get the full thing going back again. But baby steps, and with safety, obviously. So it's a cool little thing that we have for meantime because everything else is still closed out here. So just to have that little piece of wrestling still available, even though it is minimal, but it's something we're definitely happy to still have.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're able to do that. I know from state to state, all the rules are different. So, you know, out here, we're in Indiana and the rules are a little bit looser. I think we've come a little bit farther than a lot of places, but
you guys just had the collective over the weekend.
Yeah, but
we definitely have a boom of independent shows happening with being able to socially distance a little better than say some of the main companies. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and how has that affected your bookings? You know, being able to perform.
Well, for us over here, at least on my end, everything shut down. So I went from having bookings every weekend to nothing. And I think we all came to a realization of how much we took wrestling for granted, especially for that exact same example of, I have 2 shows this weekend. I have 3. I have 1. I'm flying out to New York. I'm flying out to Puerto Rico. I'm flying out to this. To all of a sudden COVID happens and nothing happens. Everything shut down. And now we're just here at home with our thumbs up our ass and just kind of like, what do we do now? And everything just stopped. So yeah, it's definitely sucked I know myself included. I went from being busy to not doing anything. So I know it was hard for a lot of folks. It was hard for me to try and adjust and cope with it at first.
Yeah, we always thought wrestling was always going to be there. You know.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It'll be here. You know. We never thought that we wouldn't have audiences in the crowd, you know.
Yeah.
What could we do?
Yeah, who'd have thought that the world would be in a state that it is right now, and that our business would be we'd be having digital people in the crowds and cardboard stand-ups at baseball games. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, go figure.
But I think we have to, we got to stay positive.
Yeah, of course.
And there is still work out there now. But it's got to get better eventually. So, that's what we're all hoping for.
I heard there's going to be a crowd at the World Series. So, not a whole lot. I think they said it's somewhere around 12,000. But, I mean, that's a lot. Now, when you really think about it.
Yeah, for real.
For sure. And then, I mean, I know, like, for instance, like in Europe with the soccer games, they're still, like, small crowds. But I think Dublin just shut down again.
I read
Canada's
that today.
shutting down, I believe, or Australia, I think, is shutting down again. I don't know. We all just have to do our part, and hopefully we can get past all this soon, because I know we miss the everyday life.
Miss the road, man. Miss the call.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's put all the negativity behind us.
Yeah.
We'll go on to something positive here. How did you get your start in pro wrestling? What made you want to be a pro wrestler? And where was the first place you went? What was the first thing you did to start pursuing that dream?
Well, I started watching wrestling when I was a kid. I would watch Lucha Libre. I was watch AAA, CMLL when I was a kid. But that's when we used to live out down in Mexico. And then when we came up here, I mean, we didn't have much. We didn't have like cable or anything. So I kind of grew out of that for a little while. Then I got into soccer, and I played soccer for like 12 years. And then once I got older, I had a friend who was into pro wrestling. And at the time, I wasn't too fond of it. But we eventually started watching the pay-per-views at his house, because he had a pool. He was the only house in the neighborhood that had a pool. So we would go to his house a lot. And he was a wrestling fan, so we would just kind of like, oh, okay, we'll watch wrestling, I guess. But that wasn't my thing, at least. And then the thing that really got me into it was WrestleMania 17, when it was a TLC match with the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. And the particular spot that really got me into it was when Jeff Hardy was hanging from the title. And Edge speared him.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. This is cool. I want to do this. And then eventually I found a backyard wrestling group in my neighborhood around my area, that they had a ring, and they did shows.
Yeah.
So then I contacted them through MySpace.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up going over to check them out. I started training with them. So then, so I started with them. That was in maybe, I think, 2005. I think 2005, early 2006. And then, I think, something like that. So then eventually, so we started taking like matches that we were watching like on TNA at the time. And we would like mimic them move for move, and we would rehearse them in the ring. But also, mind you, that the ring that we had was an old beat up boxing ring, so it was super stiff. Yeah, it was super stiff. But we didn't know the difference. We just saw ring.
Sure.
So we were super excited about it, and then eventually, so here's a backstory. So I have a degree in graphic design and animation. So that's what I used to do on my real job before WWE. I was a graphic designer, content manager. I used to work for an adult production company, because here in the San Fernando Valley is very common.
Sure.
And so I used to make flyers for a backyard wrestling show. And we used to actually go to PWG and flyer at PWG. But because my flyers were, they were pretty legit. Because that was what I used to do. I was a graphic designer. So the people would actually come to our backyard shows, and then once they found out it was a backyard show, they would turn away and leave. But there was this promoter that ended up staying, and then he liked what we were doing, and then he came to one of our practices, and he had asked me and this other guy if we can, like, this is how the conversation went. His name was Joe Medina. And he's like, hey, how long does it take for you guys to come up with a match? And me and my friend, his name was Brandon and Julio, we were like, it takes about a month to come up with the match, because that's how long it would take for us to rehearse the matches. But looking back now, that was stupid. But he's like, can you do one now? And we were like, oh shit, okay, yeah. So we ended up doing a match, whatever, and then he kind of liked what we did, and he's like, hey, I have this show coming up. Are you guys interested in being a part of it? So we're like, yeah, of course. So then we went to the venue, and it was a Elks Lodge, and it was a 2-story building. And basically myself and my friend Brandon, we ended up taking the ring by ourselves all the way up to the 2nd floor and setting it up. So we kind of got tricked a little into like doing ring crew, but we didn't know any better, and we're like, yeah, sure, of course. So we took it down, whatever, and then eventually the guy, Joe Medina, he goes, hey, I have a ring in my backyard, and we have this guy. If you're interested in actually training for real, we'll get you going if you want. So the guy who was training me, he was a straight Mexican luchador. So I learned Mexican lucha. And he would just beat the hell out of us. And it was great because he was an actual wrestler. He wasn't just a pro wrestler. He was a wrestler down in Mexico. So we learned how to wrestle, like amateur, Greco, freestyle, all that other stuff. Then we learned lucha libre. And then from there on, I mean, there's more to the story, but just in a nutshell, that's essentially what it was.
What's the difference between learning the lucha style when you did, maybe compared to these kids learning the American style in the schools today? I assume that's what you guys are showing down there. Right?
It's very different. Obviously the biggest difference is working on your right side versus working on the left side, which is what we do in the American style. Is we work on the left side, but in lucha we work on the right. There's a lot of trust that goes into lucha libre. You have to be a strong base. You have to have strong footing, because you have to catch people. So you have to learn how to not be a bitch, and then and catch people. There's so much that goes into the footwork, the arm placements, the timing, that when I see guys out here now in the US, they just see a move, but they don't learn how to dissect the move. Either that or they don't go to a proper place to learn lucha libre, and they just see a move on TV. Okay, I can do that, but they don't stop and see all the dots that connect the move. They just see move as a whole. They don't learn to dissect it. So there is a big difference, but it's also like learning a different language. If I go down to Mexico, I know I can work with anybody down there because I know how to easily transition from the left side to the right side. And if I come back up here, I know I can work on the left side all the time because that's what we do. So there is a difference, and not everybody gets it. Everybody feels that because they can do a head scissors, they know lucha libre, and that's not the case. There's way more into it. There's way more that goes into it than just I can do one thing and that's it. There's more to it, but there's a big difference.
I've always kind of loved lucha libre and the mystique of lucha libre. So that was cool to hear. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, and you don't have to mention names, but in the United States, are there places where you can be legitimately trained in lucha libre, or is that best to be done in Mexico?
No. There's a lot of places. I know if I'm not mistaken, the place, I think it's called Galley in Indiana. Illinois. Galley Lucha Libre. Yeah. I want to say that's where like Gringo Loco and like Mustafa Ali and a bunch of those guys came from. I want to say Galley Lucha Libre. I'm not exactly sure where in Illinois. I know it's by Chicago area. That's that place up there. And then obviously here in LA, it's so abundant. There's so many places you can go out here to learn lucha libre because it's a big hotbed for authentic, real lucha libre. because we're kind of like Mexico Junior down here. So you can go. Most of the guys, honestly, most of the guys here learn lucha libre just by default, because most of us know it. One of the best places is probably Santino Brothers because of who the trainers are. Los Luchas, Soul Grand Phoenix Star. They're probably the best hybrid lucha libre guys that I know of, because they're the ones that trained me how to transition from the Mexican to the American style. And they're one of the main trainers at Santino Brothers, which obviously they have a great track record as of who's come out of that school. Brody King, who's Ray's, Heather Monroe. There's a big Jake Atlas who's in NXT now. They have a good track record. They definitely have a good track record.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I didn't realize that there were actually, legitimate places like that in the U.S. So I want to fast forward here a little bit to one thing I wanted to talk about, but you had talked about the ladder match with Edge that got you started. Yeah. You had a little incident at a TLC match.
Oh, jeez.
we got to talk about it because there were people on both sides of the fence after that. Mm-hmm. Some said it was reckless and stupid. Some said it was the greatest part of the show. Did anything go wrong during that, or was everything?
So that was a TLC in Baltimore, 2012. I think
CM Punk and the
Miz and Alberto. Yeah. So so they always have, and I know I've joked about this a lot, but Michael Hayes would tell me quite a bit, like almost monthly. How are we gonna kill you this month? Because I would always be the one taking like some ridiculous bump.
Crazy bump, yeah.
And I got used to it, but I enjoyed it. Because obviously we're in front of the camera, and I want to be seen. Duh.
Yeah, sure.
We're in this business because we want that weird instant gratification. So then they mentioned the ladder spot, and I've never taken a bump like that. But obviously I've seen it. So then they wanted me to do it during rehearsal. So they put a big crash pad on the outside. And if you've ever been backstage, they have a very, very massive crash pad.
Yeah.
So I was like, cool, yeah, okay, whatever. So then for some reason, I don't remember why, but like Edge and Christian were there. I forgot why they were there, but they were there. So Edge and one of them comes up to me as they see me climbing. And then they go, hey, whatever you do, just ride it. Don't jump, because if you jump, you're gonna kick the ladder from under you, and you're just gonna eat it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So they were doing the rehearsals, and then they tipped me over, and then what does my dumbass do? I jumped. So sure enough, I kicked the ladder from under me, and then as I'm falling, I fall straight down, and my foot caught the rope, and then and I just eat it. Thankfully the crash pad was there. And then Michael Hayes, after the check on me, they're like, oh, you know what, scratch it, whatever, no, let's not do it. I was like, no, hold on, I can do it. Because I just need to get that fear out of my head, and that initial fear. So then I went and I did it a few more times. I had to do it several times to kind of appease them, to make sure that I knew that I was okay. And then right before we went out, I went up to Miz and Punk, and I was like, hey guys, I trust you. I'm a little nervous. Just don't shove me, just tilt it. And Punk is like, yeah, you're fine. We got you. We're fine.
Take care of you.
Yeah. But they knew I was nervous, of course. And then so eventually the spot happens. And I know they did like a above angle, like a eagle view angle, I guess. I don't know what it's called.
Like the bird's eye view.
Yeah, that thing. And you can see that. So I completely missed the first table, and I ended up on the second table. Mm-hmm. But my knee clipped the first table. So that is probably what hurt the most. Because for like a whole 2 weeks, I had a bruised knee. It sucked. Get on the plane, driving. So that was probably the most painful part about the whole thing. It wasn't the bump itself; it was clipping the table. That hurt the most.
I imagine. Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy to think you take a fall from that high up, and it was just a simple knock on the knee that like hurt the worst.
Yeah, yeah, that's what hurt the most. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a 10-foot ladder in the garage, and when I go to the top of that thing, it freaks me out. So I can't imagine, you watch these guys jumping off these things on a regular basis, and I mean, I guess like you said, once you get the fear out of your system, but man, that's got to be a fear.
It was, but I mean, I was thankful, and then this is just me patting myself on the back, that I think that was like probably the highest bump of the night, considering it was called a TLC match or TLC show.
Now you notice, like, does it take a sort of like finesse really to fall off a ladder correctly, right? I mean, you look at Jeff. Jeff kind of just leans forward and lets himself fall, you know, and it seems to work better for him that way. The ladder doesn't get kicked. He just kind of fall. Yeah. Is that true? Is it like a finesse to fall off?
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean though. Like, you just have to write it down. You can't jump because you're gonna kick it. So you just have to say F it and just hold on until that last second. But I mean, I'll do it again now because I know what it feels like. And I know what to expect.
Well, when we get Heroes and Legends rolling again, we're gonna break out a ladder.
There you go.
We need a ladder match.
Yep.
All right, so I had to fast forward to that just because of what you talked about here a little bit ago. Let's reverse a little bit, go back to 2010 and FCW. How did you get into that? What was your contact with WWE? What brought you into FCW?
So as most everybody knows, FCW is now NXT. But back then, the system was FCW. Mm-hmm. And the way you would get in there would be you have to be signed. And then once they sign you, they send you to developmental, which is FCW. And then from there, you work your way up until the main roster. However, I started backwards. When I did my tryout on August 10th, I believe, August 10th of 2010 at the Staples Center, I got approached afterwards by Ty Bailey, who was the main guy before Kenyon Seaman. And so they had offered me this position of this thing that they were doing the following day in Bakersfield, California for SmackDown, because they were doing something for a debut for this guy. So I didn't know much of what was currently happening storyline wise. I didn't know what was happening. So I contacted a friend. I was like, hey, they have me with this guy who, like, he looks familiar, but I don't know who he is. Do you know who it is? And he's like, yeah, that's Dos Caras Jr., which I knew that name. So then I freaked out like a little kid. And so then I did the whole spiel with Alberto, and then they invited me again the following day because they were doing a double taping of SmackDown. Because I believe the next week they were going to Europe, and this is when they had like the brand split. So the SmackDown guys were going for like a week and a half to Europe. So we did a second taping in Fresno on a Wednesday, and they then pulled me aside afterwards, and then they offered me the contract. So I started backwards. I started on the road first, and then they got sent to developmental. But even when I was in developmental, I was only there for like 2 days because I was on the road. I was doing house shows. I was doing all that stuff, which I know it didn't sit well with a lot of folks at FCW, which I later found out because I'm just waddling in, and I have basically, in a sense, 2 contracts. I have the developmental and then the on the road contract. So it didn't sit well with people, but I started backwards than everybody else. So everybody has a different story of how they got signed.
Now, how did you get that kind of deal? They see you wrestling somewhere, or just like, hey, we need a spot, or?
Yeah, so basically what had happened was I worked for this promoter, this company called Empire Wrestling Federation, EWF, which is one of the longest running companies out here in California. And the promoter, Jesse Hernandez, was one of the main contacts anytime WWE came to Southern California. So I guess they had contacted him that they needed luchador guys or whatever. And I worked for Jesse once. In El Monte, California, and he came up after me afterwards, and he's like, hey, WWE's coming to town. They're looking for lucha guys. Are you interested? I was like, yeah, of course. And obviously this would have been my first time with WWE. So that day happened in August at the Staples Center. It was the day after SummerSlam 2010. We did a tryout. We did the whole spiel. They initially had contacted another guy that was there. He goes by the name of Mercurio Jr. And he was the original Ricardo. But they had asked him if he wanted to do the spot the next day, but for whatever reason, he said he couldn't make it. For whatever reason. So then Jesse just says, well, he speaks Spanish. And they approached me. And then that's kind of how it happened. Yeah, so thanks to that guy that said no. I got
how fate works, man. That's how fate works, right? I mean, obviously this was another guy's spot. He couldn't make it happen.
Yeah,
he made it happen.
Yep. But the cool thing was, and this is something that they kept telling me was, and I don't know because they joke with you a lot. But sometimes they don't tell you if they're joking. They just tell you something and they walk away, and you're like, wait, what? But they would constantly always tell me that I was supposed to be a one-time thing. And that Vince liked me, and he's like, "Oh, you're lucky Vince likes you." And then they walk away, and like, "What?"
Alberto's entrance wouldn't have been the same without you. You know, obviously it's already over the top, but you know, you put that, you know, you just put the balls behind it. You know, just like it was, you know, you were ready to go.
It was fun. It was fun. And I thought we complimented each other in front of the camera very well.
Well, I think originally, I mean, you got him over by that entrance. I mean, that was one of the most memorable things about your character was that, you know. So you're kind of typecast to that. I think.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and you should be. I mean, it was awesome. It's great. We all remember it. So you kind of moved over the next year and a half, 2 years. You moved relatively quickly, FCW to NXT, and then you got drafted to Raw in 2011. So we're talking maybe a year and a half or so from start until main roster date or main.
Well, like I said, I started on the main roster from day one. And then I got sent to a developmental. So I was on Raw and SmackDown from day one. So like I got signed to my on the road contract right away, and then it took me like 2-3 months to get all my medical stuff to be officially a WWE superstar, and then got sent to FCW like 3 months later.
Gotcha.
So I started on the road first. That's why a lot of people were not happy with me down there, because I was already on the road from the beginning.
Yeah, they were a little jealous.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Well, like Mike said, that's the way fate works out, you know.
Yeah.
May the odds be ever in your favor. So, so I want to talk about a couple of moments that I would assume that no matter where you're at in your career in the WWE are moments that you'll never forget. And one of them is when John Cena called out Alberto and you came out instead.
Oh, gee. I remember SmackDown.
And that ended up with a fist to your face.
Yeah.
It was something that I mean, I thought it was great TV. So was that an intimidating moment to be working with John Cena? And what did you guys have a good relationship in the WWE?
Yeah, thankfully. So I personally thought, and this is just obviously my opinion, that I thought that we had a pretty good relationship with a lot of the main guys. The one thing that, however you feel about us on a personal level, like our work rate was top notch all the time. And I will stand by that any day. That our work rate was top level. I'll stand by that 100%. I think at that point we had already been working with John for a while, I think. So yeah, obviously, like, you're there with the top guy, not just in pro wrestling, but like, no, in all pro wrestling. But but he was always fun with us because another thing that we used to do, especially me, I used to pitch ideas constantly for Alberto and his opponent, and then most of the time they would always agree to it. They would tweak it to make it make more sense, but they, for the most part, they were always very welcoming. And then John, there was several times where John would tell us, he would come up to me because I was always by the ring. If Alberto had like a phone conference or something or interview or some shit, so I'd be by the ring, and then John would go, "Hey," because Alberto was presidente and I was mini presidente. I don't know. So he would come up to me. He was like, "Hey, mini pres, it's me and Alberto. Think of a finish," and then he'd walk away. So then I would come up with stuff, and then by the time like Alberto would come down, I would tell him, "Hey, it's you guys. This is what I have in mind." And he's like, "Oh, cool." He's like, "Did you tell John?" I was like, "Not yet." He's like, "Well, tell John." I was like, "All right." So then like Alberto would go off and do something else, and then I would see John. I was like, "Hey, John, what'd you think about this?" He's like, "Cool, all right." And then that's how the match would happen. So like Alberto and him would like really never communicate. They would just use me. Because they were all busy doing their own thing. That's another thing that happens a lot, like on TV. They have to go do a pre-tape, or they have to go do like an appearance in the arena. So that's also another thing that happened during the matches. They would use me to be the messenger if the ref wasn't available. That's another thing that I would do a lot that I don't think a lot of people now who are managers do. I would call the matches to them as the match is happening. So if you ever saw me running back and forth, it's not just because I'm being all frantic or whatever. I'm relaying messages. So Alberto would tell me, "Hey, go tell him to stay in the corner and watch the kick." But he would tell me in Spanish, and I would run to the corner. "Hey, Randy, stay in the corner, watch the kick." And then sure enough. So yeah, I thought we had a great relationship with John. And yeah, so it was always such a blessing, such a blast to work with him too, and I got to learn so much because there's certain people that have this weird, amazing factor to them of how to control the crowd. One particular example, I think we were like in Fort Wayne, and it was a live event. So obviously they don't have those cameras ringside, so they speak to each other a lot more, a little louder, and. John was about to blow his comeback, so Del Rio had him in the hold, and then the crowd is in the whole clapping thing. So then the crowd is starting to get all rowdy, and then I heard Alberto. He goes, "Ready? Okay, let's go." And then I saw John grab Alberto by the head. He pulls him down. He's like, "No, not yet. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. Hit me again. Hit me a couple times." So he hits him a couple times, and then Alberto grabs the hold again, and then the crowd just starts coming even harder. They started coming even like clapping louder, and then I remember just sitting there. And I'm like, that was freaking cool. Like he knew that the crowd wasn't ready there. It was like, how did he do that? And the only two other people that I've ever seen do that to control the crowd like that were Ray and Edge. At least that I was there, that I saw it. And that to me is awesome. That's a freaking cool thing to know how to manipulate, how to control the crowd like that. And yeah, so John was great.
Yes, now you got me thinking of who nowadays has that ability. And honestly, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anybody that has that level of control.
No, John was amazing.
Yeah.
The show was in Fort Wayne. That's actually where we're located out of. So.
No, look at that. Look at that.
So we've definitely done our share of WWE shows.
If it wasn't Fort Wayne, it may have been what's the other place we used to run out of? Evansville
a lot. Yeah.
It was one of those two, but I remember it was Indiana.
Well, that's pretty cool. The way you just described that whole thing sounded so fluid. When you were pitching these ideas for your matches to John, was there an approval needed, or was it kind of like, here's the idea, John says, cool, that's what you go ahead and do? At that time.
Yeah. And granted, honestly, who John is John, so he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Right.
And then we would just have to tell whoever our producer is, so he can tell the camera guys, hey, this is coming up. But like I said, like I would give them an idea, and then they would just kind of like tweak it make it make sense or make it a little better or whatever. But essentially they took my idea and then just, evolved it. But yeah, what John said basically went. And that was pretty much it.
Not surprising. I mean, we've all heard that it's that way, which I think makes it a little bit more comfortable for a lot of people having somebody like that, where you don't have to have somebody going for approval after approval.
Right.
Makes things a lot easier. So, another person that you had the opportunity to work with was Bret Hart.
That was awesome.
We had Bret Hart out here for our very first Heroes and Legends, and what a guy! I mean, there are people, I've met a ton of people over the last 10 years that I've been in the professional wrestling business. He is just one of those guys, man, that you feel so comfortable around. Did you have a lot of interaction with him, or was that kind of a one and done kind of spot for you guys?
No, we did a couple things with him throughout the years, but it was just like a quick little something. The day of that match, I want to say Ontario. I think it was Ontario. And myself and Alberto, we were at the gym, and then we get a text from the office, and I think it was Road Dogg, I think. But we get a text, and we're like, "Hey, it's Alberto and Ricardo versus Bret and John." And like I said, we rib each other all the time. We joke with each other all the time. So we're like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Sure. And then the more like myself and Alberto started talking about it, we're like, because they never sent us like a follow-up message. So we're like, maybe it is it. Maybe that is what's gonna happen. Like, nah, it's not gonna happen. But they haven't replied or they haven't sent anything back. So maybe it is. So eventually we contacted we text them back, and then we're like, hey, so is it happening? And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh shoot, okay. Well, I don't have any. I have my wrestling gear, but Ricardo's not a wrestler. So I ended up going to it was like a sporting goods store, but it was like an all women's sporting goods store. And I bought some like cheap tights that they had, some leggings. And that's what I used as a gear, as wrestling outfit. But yeah, so like the whole match, I think I was in there for most of the time, and Alberto came in for like two things. I think he took like a tack one and a backdrop, and then I got in again. So I was in there for most of the time, and then like I took John's comeback, and then the sharpshooter, which I mean, dude,
yeah,
yes, of course,
big smile on your face underneath the.
Of course, man. And like there's a picture that they took that I have framed, not here, at my other home. So I have that picture framed in an actual frame. So that one, there's the one that I took the Lion Tamer from Jericho. So I have that one framed too. So I have like a collection, a Hall of Pain, if you will.
Yeah.
Of just pictures that I've gone in and framed, because that's pretty cool.
It reminds me of when CM Punk, when Jake the Snake came out and put the snake on Punk.
Yeah,
you just see like a smile from ear to ear, like he's supposed to be knocked out, but like he's just marking out in his own head,
Oh yeah.
Now, I mean, a lot of times you were kind of the punching bag, which kind of makes sense. But did you ever get tired of that, or were you just happy with the fact that you were on TV and people got to watch you, or was there a point where you started getting tired of the role that you had?
I wouldn't say I got tired. Did I ever want something more to happen? Of course. I was happy that I was getting the position that I was getting, because for the most part we were constantly main event status on either Raw or SmackDown. And if it wasn't main event, it was like an upper mid card. So we, for the most part, had pretty good stuff going on. And like I said, like and every now and then they would give me something. They would kind of like feed me a bone. Hey, Ricardo, you're gonna do a dropkick today? Cool. Or we did a match. It was Alberto, David Otunga, and myself against Ray, Sin Cara, and Sheamus. And they trusted me to take Sin Cara's offense, because I knew how to base for him and I knew how to work with him. Because again, it goes back to the same thing of learning lucha. It's not easy. There's more aspects to just learning how to do one thing. So like they will trust me to be that guy, to, hey, you can make him look good. Or every now and then, like on tours, there was one tour that I did in Europe where I worked R-Truth for the entire or the first week, at least. I think it was the first week. And then the second week it was with Sin Cara under the mask. But they trusted me because R-Truth was coming back from injury. And they're like, who can we put him with that's going to, still showcase him, but, protect him. So they put me with them because they trusted me. So that's a cool little something to have. I know back then I may not have seen it that way. But obviously hindsight, 2020. So I was happy. But of course I wanted more. We always want more.
Now, did this event take place before or after you dressed up like Sheamus?
Oh, I remember. So another thing that they like to do, that was a lot of fun. Another thing that they like to do is they try and keep secrets sometimes. So so as they put me in a room, and they did the whole hair thing. So Sheamus didn't know. They knew we were doing a promo, but they didn't know that I was coming out dressed as him. So he didn't see me until we were about to go out, until we were in Gorilla. So that was a lot of fun. That was fun though. And it was the same thing when we dressed up as Swagger and Zeb. They didn't know. They knew we were doing a promo. They knew we were doing we had shot a pre-tape, but they didn't know that we had dressed up as them. Because they wanted to get like a genuine reaction out of them. So that was fun, and it was kind of cool that we actually ended up doing I think 3 or 4 more pre-tapes. Which my favorite one was the last one that unfortunately didn't air. But that was my favorite one, and I wish that would. I'm sure that's somewhere in some kind of a vault.
And they never get rid of footage.
No. But that was my favorite. It was the last one that was my favorite one. But because I got more comfortable with it. But yeah, so all those things were so much fun, and to see their faces when they saw us dressed up, that was pretty cool. Because it usually had a smile followed by a middle finger.
Well, that's cool. That's one of those memories that you can always bring up and makes you laugh a little bit.
Sure.
What would you say? I'm not going to say worst opponent because that doesn't even make sense, but the lowest time for you in the WWE where you felt it probably wasn't, I don't know, when you were probably the most unhappy. Can you remember a time like that?
Yeah. It was definitely right before I asked for my release. Because once they broke me up from Alberto, and then the whole storyline with RVD had run its course, I wasn't doing anything, and so I kept pitching ideas to the writers, but the writers wouldn't give me a time of day. Or I would stand outside of like Hunter's office or like Johnny Ace's office, and I would just stand there waiting for them to come out so I can talk to them, but they wouldn't give me the time of day. So I started getting upset. And there's different paying systems I don't know what it is now, if it's still the same, but there was 2 different pay systems in WWE back then, where you get your salary, as it comes every like your set salary, or you get your full amount of what you worked that week, which includes appearances, signings, whatever. You get the little extra. So I was on that first, because when I first started with WWE, we were on everything. We were doing so much. So I was getting my nice little paychecks every week. But then once they took me away from Alberto, and then, like I said, the whole storyline with RVD ran its course, I went back to, I was still on that same pay scale. So I was like, hey, I'm not doing anything right now, so I'm not getting paid anything. So for like a good 6-7 months, I kept going to the office, and I was like, hey, Corona, man, dude, I'm not making anything right now. Can you switch me back to my salary? So I can make my fixed amount. At least I'm making something. Because I was like, man, between the hotels that we had to pay for, the car rentals.
You're going to the hole now, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, it's getting pricey, and I'm not making anything at the end of the week. So can I go back to my salary? And at the time, Corona was like, well, we're coming up on WrestleMania. We got a lot of stuff going on. We can talk about it afterwards. He was like, can you hang on? I was like, yeah, okay, fine. But I kept bugging him. So then WrestleMania happens, and I keep going up to him. I was like, Carano, man, like, dude, like I'm hurting right now. Can we talk about this? And they kept, throwing me off or like pushing me away and blowing me off. So then that's when I started getting bitter and angry and all this other stuff and depression and all this other stuff. And there was a lot of stuff that was going on in my head. And so then eventually one day I just didn't go. I called Carano and I was like, hey man, listen, I'm still at home. I think I'm done. I want to ask for my release. I'm not enjoying this anymore. And, I keep trying to talk to you guys, but you guys keep blowing me off and I'm not getting an answer anywhere. So then he's like, hey, where are you? I was like, I'm still at home, dude. Like, it's Monday. I didn't get on the plane. He's like, well, let me talk to Vince. Let me talk to Hunter or to Paul, and I'll get back to you. Just stay home. Take a couple of days. I was like, all right, man, that's cool. So then he finally gets back to me. I think it was on a Wednesday, like around 5:00 in the afternoon. And he's like, hey, I just talked to Vince and I talked to Paul, and then, they're going to grant you a release. I just want to say thank you. I was like, no, man, thank you. Just, at the time I was 30, 29, 30. I was like, I still got, 29. I was like, I'm so young. I still got a whole lot that I can give. I can try my luck on the independents. So he's like, yeah, if you want to come back, let us know, which I'm sure they tell that to everyone. But yeah, that was it. And then the depression kicked in, and which I already had issues with that, and it all started because of insomnia. Then I've been very open about my insomnia, my sleep disorder, and then like freaking from there it led into the depression. The depression led into substance abuse, and then it was just a cycle that just kept going back. I couldn't sleep because I was always fucked up, and I was always fucked up because I couldn't sleep. So it just became a cycle, and then it just went downhill from there. But and then so going back to like COVID when it first started, here in LA, like I had nothing to do. I was busy every week, and all of a sudden I have nothing to do. And then I live next to a freaking liquor store, so that didn't help. So eventually, with time, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I went and got help. I'm about to be 6 months sober. I'm about to be 6 months.
Congratulations.
Yeah, on the 5th of November, it'll be 6 months. On the 3rd. But yeah, it was just a downward cycle, and it all went back to the same thing. It was like I couldn't sleep. I was depressed, and then depression led into the substance. The substance led into no sleep, and it just went on and on and on and on. So yeah, so that was like a good 5 years of low point, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is, you survived it and you overcame it. You realized that there was a problem and you corrected it.
Yeah, it took a lot of effort from a lot of folks.
And on that note, at 6 months, I mean that's huge. 6 months doesn't seem like a great deal of time to most people, but that's huge. So congratulations to you.
When you have an issue, it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. And also, on that note, just to be able to let people know that if you're going through things like that, there are ways to get help. And,
yeah, there are.
And it's important that people know that, because, depression is probably more prevalent in society, especially now, like you said, with COVID and everything going on, that it's important to know that people that are going through that, there is help out there. So seek that out, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, and start to get yourself on the right path. And, kudos to you for doing that and getting as far as you have so far. We all know, I mean, I've dealt with that myself. It's never over.
Yeah. It's a daily battle, but like as cliche as it sounds, it is true. One day at a time.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, we're coming up to the end here of our interview, and that's one thing that you just touched on that I wanted to ask specifically. Is the door open for you at WWE in the event that you wanted to come back?
I would love to. Honestly, I throughout the years, even when I was there, I found myself enjoying the backstage side of things a lot more than I did on camera. I enjoyed training. I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed producing. I enjoyed being an agent. And then now that's partially also what I'm doing now. Like I'm teaching. I did 6 months in India. I opened up a market in India that both Impact and WWE went after. And coming up soon, I'm close to finishing something up, a deal where I'm going to do it all over again in a different country. That I'm sure both WWE and Impact are going to go after when I'm done there.
Want some of that market,
yeah. So I'm going to open up another market. If things go according to plan. But like I enjoy that. I enjoy going out and teaching. I know I'm a lot better at that than in ring for myself at least. But I enjoy it.
Live a couple times. You're very well in the ring. So let's talk that. Great matches you had at Heroes and Legends.
But I enjoy that. I enjoy that aspect. So if the offer would ever come and present itself, of course I would love to.
Sure.
To be involved in wrestling.
So you look at yourself more like maybe backstage at NXT, or you?
I would love to. Yeah. I would love to, if given the opportunity. Yes. Throughout the years, I've taken some pretty stupid bumps on independence that have come back and haunted me much later. So like every now and then I wake up a little sore. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, why does this hurt? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. And I'm getting older. I'm 34 now. Yeah, 34 now. So we don't have that much of a long lifespan as far as the in-ring competition. We keep living a certain lifestyle of stupid bump after stupid bump. But yeah, if given the opportunity and it presents itself, I would love to.
Would you care to comment about the current situation with WWE and the Twitch accounts and that whole situation that's going on, or do you not want to touch that?
No, I mean it sucks. It sucks for the guys who put in the effort.
That's why I asked if the door was open first.
No. I mean, I don't have a Twitch, so it doesn't apply to me. The only thing I would have that, if anything, would be the cameo thing. Yeah. But even then, I mean, whatever. But I didn't invest that much time and effort on that third party thing, like some of the guys, like your Lana, your Paige, AJ Styles, those guys, they invested a lot of time in it. They built their own thing. Somebody had posted somebody had posted the other day, like how many cameos I think Big E had done, and he's like, you could buy a car with this, like a nice fancy car with this. So they're making quite a bit, and it sucks for the guys. And I know we all saw it when it happened to Zack Ryder when he had his YouTube channel.
Yep.
He made a song, he made a music video, and they
made
took
a title.
Yeah. So yeah, his own title. It sucks for the guys. And
it always goes back to that independent contractor status.
Yeah, and I know
we like to throw around.
I know, Andrew Yang had a pretty cool little thing on it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's pretty informative.
I follow him on Twitter. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, he's quite the advocate. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, Mike, anything else?
I just, like I said, I want to first of all, let's give you a chance. So where, like, if someone wants to buy some merch from you, maybe want to book you when this is all over with, how do they get a hold of you?
So I know immediately it would be like Pro Wrestling Tees with the backward slash Jesus Rodriguez, or the cameos at RRWE cameo. You can hit me up on Twitter at RRWE, and I haven't switched my Twitter yet because I don't want to lose a check mark. And then I do have some like merch on the side, like I have like face masks, pins, 8x10s. They can always contact me on either Instagram or Twitter, and go from there.
Yeah, well, and if people are interested in the training school, where do they find Knox Pro? How do they get in contact with them?
Knox Pro, it would be you can contact them at I believe their Twitter is Knox Pro ENT. And in Instagram, I believe is the same thing, Knox Pro Entertainment. Or you can contact Rikishi on Twitter or Instagram, and then they can just direct you which way to go. The main contact, I believe, is Reno Anawai, who's Rikishi's cousin, who's the main guy who runs the school. So he would be the one that you'd be dealing with if anybody wants to sign up. But like I said, right now, because of COVID, we're only limited of how many people we can have at a time. And we're constantly doing testing and checking and temperature and sanitizing. That whole thing smells like sanitizer because we're constantly cleaning. But like I said, we're trying to be as safe as possible and still have something going on.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a great interview. Learned some things about you that we didn't know. And so, if the one last thing, if you could like put it in a nutshell of what your WWE run like meant, what would you want to be remembered for? If this was it, if you didn't get, if you never got back into wrestling again, what do you want to be remembered for?
I am proud that for those 4 or 5 years that we were there, myself, Alberto, and Rey Mysterio represented Latin America. We were Latin America. Anytime they wanted somebody for Latin America, it was one of us three, or all three of us, or Alberto and myself as a team. So I'm proud to represent my Latinos, because, I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is when it comes to representation, and we weren't stereotypical. We weren't, as much as I love those guys of the Mexicals, they were stereotypical, and we came in a little different. And not only did we represent Mexicans, but we represented Latin America, and that's awesome.
Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Then, like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show. We're definitely gonna be looking out for Knox Pro and some of those guys that you got coming up. I know I am.
Absolutely.
And, maybe when this whole thing's over with, we'll get you back in Fort Wayne again.
I would love to. Damas y caballeros, yo soy su amigo Ricardo Rodriguez, and you are watching Mike and Sean on Hotdog and a Handshake.